Okay, Miss House, can you just tell us your name, kind of what you're here for in general?
Hallie House. I'm here to talk to you.
You don't know what you're here for yet?
No.
I purposely did not tell you exactly what we're going to talk about um, in hopes of creating somewhat of an authentic situation. It's not meant to be like a overstimulated situation or anything that could be um, negatively significant emotionally. But it is supposed to be something that could invoke some type of reaction and emotions, but all with the idea of moving forward in your condition. Saying condition because you were diagnosed with PTSD
Yes.
priorly.
Mhm.
Fair to say a year and a half ago? Almost 2 years ago?
2 years ago, I think, yeah.
2 years ago. So before we get in to the incident, we're going to use two techniques within a therapy called exposure therapy. Two specific techniques that we're going to use, both of which should be fairly low as far as on the stimulus level, but everyone can react to them fairly differently. If at any point the reactions get too significant, too real, we'll work ourselves kind of back down from there. But they should feel something. You should feel something. And if you don't, then that means you may have progressed in a positive manner
Okay.
to date, since we haven't discussed it. But we discuss it periodically, just as a husband and wife. But as far as addressing it in a counseling nature, you haven't discussed that in over a year and a half.
Right.
Okay. So, the first one that we're going to use is interceptive exposure. That's the idea of deliberately bringing on physical sensation that's harmless, but could be feared. And this one should be very harmless, but I don't believe has ever happened. Have you ever? No, we'll just go with it. So I have, with the accident, required brain surgery.
Right.
Okay. I have significant scar from one point all the way to the other. I don't know how visible it is now.
Right. Yeah.
But have you, just for this exercise, we're going to have you touch the entire scar. Have you ever touched the scar?
No. I don't think so.
Do you mind touching the scar and just seeing?
Okay.
Have you ever done it?
No, I've never done it. Do you want me to? Right now?
Yeah, you can. The whole thing. Getting in there.
Okay.
Starts down here. Down here is like that bump or that cut to the jaw. All the way up. Feel the skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot thicker here and indented still. You can feel, when you're feeling that, you could feel where the skull was completely fractured and has now gone back together.
Yes.
Did that do anything? Other than make you grossed out that I have a giant scar on my head?
Doesn't make me grossed out. That makes me feel sad. I looked at the pictures yesterday of your scar.
Oh, when it was like intense?
Mm-hmm.
Not that intense.
I still look at them.
The intense photos or my current
The
head?
intense
Because
ones.
unfortunately you have to still look at my current head.
I think you have a beautiful head.
But
Yeah,
Oh,
it
thank you.
brings back some bad memories.
I would think it would bring up some pretty significant memories. You think something like that, those brief, smaller kind of exposures to real kind of life things, would be helpful moving forward? should you carry on with some type of therapy? Would it be helpful moving forward to have slight exposure to things that could bring you no real harm at the time, but are real and could bring certain emotions to light in a very real way.
Yeah, I think it's helpful just to make sure I'm constantly keeping my emotions in check.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is not so much, you don't want to necessarily keep them in check. You want to be able to know how big of an impact certain things may have on you, because they may be affecting you in life that you may not know it. There may be instances that you are suppressing or you're ignoring, and you're kind of making subconscious decisions daily to avoid certain things, and you may not even know that you are, because you're still kind of anxious or fearful about certain instances. So the idea of at least this kind of technique is to expose you to little things that could go on throughout everyday life, and get those emotions, invoke those emotions in a safe manner, so that throughout the daily life you're not intentionally avoiding things. It would be more obvious if you were intentionally, but also unintentionally you're allowing yourself to expose yourself to more things of real life. The object is to take a life and whatever the PTSD has affected, and open that book up to what a normalized life would be, so that you could eventually start to realize the full breadth of emotions within life. That's the idea, is really be able to get you exposed, and then not only the ability to feel, but a willingness and a desire to feel the full breadth of that. How long have we got? 7 minutes. We only have a couple. We don't have that much time left, so we'll do this briefly, and this will just be the technique. Since we haven't talked about it a lot, it's the imaginal exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably were flooded with at least some thoughts about like what happened on the day, on the instance. But do you mind just walking back from the time after I fell, and talking through, remembering that instance in your head, and just talking through kind of a play-by-play from the after I fell. The kids have already run over, so I don't want to deal with the kids right now. Just want to deal with you.
Okay.
So the kids are a huge part of it, but I'm not willing to go there for this exercise. So let's go to just the part where you're holding my head, just with me. Try to keep the kids out of the situation. Just kind of what you're feeling in that instance, as I'm unconscious. That until someone comes for help.
Okay.
The instance between now you're under my head, and then someone else has come. From the first time someone comes to help.
You want me to tell you what was happening?
Yeah, just play by play of kind of what you did, what
Okay.
happened.
You fell, and you were having a seizure, and then I saw all the blood coming from your head, and so I put my hands under your head to stop the bleeding, to try and stop the bleeding. And then I started screaming for help, and that nobody came for it felt like forever, but I was screaming really loud for help.
No one was around.
Not right away, no. And then, finally, a guy was going to the gym, and he came up and stopped, and then he went and he just kind of stood there for a minute, and then he picked up my phone and told me to call 911, and I went to grab my phone, but my hands were covered in blood. So he called 911, and then at that time, some people heard me screaming from the pool and came out. And one of them was, something medical, and she gave me a towel to put under your head, but told me to stay there and hold the towel under your head. And then they called the police, and the police came.
Police and the
Ambulance.
ambulance, college police,
Mm-hmm.
ambulance. the last time you kind of, there's so much other stimuli kind of going on in that instance. Obviously, we didn't touch on the kids, but the kids obviously there, and there's a lot going on, protection, and the idea of, protecting the loved ones around you, not to mention one of your loved ones is obviously in dire need.
Yeah, the kids are screaming.
But allowing yourself, but how often do you think you replay maybe that situation in your mind?
I think I actually do it more than people know. I think I do that.
How often do you say it out loud?
I don't ever say it out loud.
Do you believe maybe talking about it and saying it out loud more often could be helpful, or do you think
Yeah,
don't
I
really
think
see a
it's
point to
helpful
it?
to talk about it. People. It's a really scary thing that happened.
If we were going to continue and have a more in-depth conversation and a full session, if you will, I think we encourage to talk through certain scenarios. I would do it in a more segmented type of way, just like we did there. Try to stay limited in the scope, and work through and process kind of the little details in that. What was the guy wearing that stopped? Was he scared? Really try to dig through some of those normal emotions or images that we would have captured on a normal day maybe, but that sometimes we just, because everything else is so profound, sometimes we lose sight of, and we just let it wash away. But I would kind of focus on retelling that part that we just talked about a few times, and letting you come down off it. We'd probably take a break, go get some water, come back and maybe do it again, let things kind of reset. And each time I'd probably ask you a couple more questions, a little bit, about some specifics. How much time really do you think it was? Again, was it a young man that stopped you, helped you, an old man that stopped and helped you? What were the girls wearing? They were lifeguards, so were they in t-shirts, swimsuits? And then some of the harder things, how much blood do you think, how much blood really was there? Was it all around, or was it just on your hands? So we try to talk about some of the lighter things and some of the deeper things, but basically with the idea of trying to cover the full breadth and the depth of that moment. And then because there is such a big traumatic moment, we probably, once we kind of work through and you felt like you've worked through all those details, we'd probably come off that, and then we'd bring in other stimulus in, such as, okay, during that same time, let's talk about maybe what you remember of the kids. What were they doing? What did Piper say? What did Jude say? What did Lila say? And we'd stay on that for segment time and repeat it a few times, and figure out, the details. Some lighthearted, hopefully. Some very, very hard. Some very sad times. But we'd work through that whole breadth and again depth of that moment, and then come off it, and then come do it again, take a break, and kind of keep on working through that instance, and we do the whole thing. And the goal again is to come out of it with a full, not just exposure, a full allowance of stimuli, negative, positive, indifferent, so that the emotion, the instance, has less control over you. You've dug into it, good, bad, and ugly, and gone through it. It doesn't change the impact on it. It doesn't change the level of intensity that the situation brought on, or the impact of the moment on you. But what it does do is it hopefully will take away some of the control aspect on your behavior, which hopefully will allow you to live a little bit more of a free and invested life.
Okay.
You can touch my scar anytime. Jump on in. The water's warm. It's coming down. 15 minutes.